K'daai Fireborn are one of the most iconic Chaos Dwarf units in Warhammer 3. On paper, they look great, but on legendary difficulty, they fail almost everywhere. Since Chaos Dwarfs were released, players have debated whether Fireborn have any real niche. I tested them in every scenario, as a Doomstack in a balanced army with all buffs, to see why they struggle so much on legendary. So today, I'm showing you 5 reasons why they underperform. You face a missile-heavy army with fast supporting units. You need to shut down their backline fast, but cavalry intercepts you. They charge, pull back and charge again. Fireborn gets stuck fighting in the middle of the map while missiles keep firing. You can't disengage and reach priority targets. This is first and most important problem of K'daai Fireborn, their speed. For a melee unit that wants to be a dominant force on the battlefield, they are painfully slow. This limits what you can actually do, and they often cannot pick engagements or catch their prey. If you're trying to pull off a Doomstack, or just engage the enemy efficiently, Fireborn will often be locked down by faster units. For a melee-focused army, mobility is critical. K'daai Fireborn are simply not fast enough, and that greatly limits their effectiveness. Okay, but what if you lean into Doomstack fully and build from there? You bring Lamassu to remove magical attacks, you bring Drazuat for buffs, you stack resistances. In a real battle, the enemy can snipe your Lamassu heroes, or force you to spread out. Once magical attacks are active again, your physical resistance loses value. One vortex or one bombardment, it's all it takes for models to stop dropping fast. Your entire army depends on a few support pieces staying alive. And that is the second reason. Fireborn Doomstack only works when everything is layered perfectly. They require a lot of support and coordination to even perform adequately. You need a Lamassu, more than one actually, to strip magical attacks of nearby enemies. Next, you want Drazuat to buff them, and also the Oath of Contempt banner to increase physical resistance. In a perfect scenario, when you are blobbed in melee with enemy and all buffs are active, their physical resistance acts like a ward save, thanks to Lamassu. But even then, one good spell can put them in serious trouble. And if the enemy kills your Lamassu or the hero riding it, the whole setup falls apart. In short, to make K'daai work, you need perfect conditions, and even then, they are still niche. You simply cannot always blob them together, because the game often forces you to spread your army across the battlefield. You are in a late game now, and Fireborn are very durable against physical damage. But, by this point, almost every enemy brings strong magical damage. Tzeentch, Wood Elves, Skaven, even the Empire. Physical resistance doesn't help anymore, and Fireborn are extremely vulnerable to magical attacks. You can mitigate some of this with Lamassu in melee, but any range magical damage is still painful. Hiding them in forests helps, but then they are a melee army that does nothing. Yes, they have high missile resistance, but that doesn't help against vortexes or bombardments, or other non-missile spells. They can survive most physical ranged attacks, like arrows, bullets, and even artillery, thanks to physical and missile resistance. But in the late game, almost every faction can bring magical attacks. Even a fully buffed Fireborn army can be shredded by spells or magical missiles. Demon armies, and especially Tzeentch, are huge problems. Wood Elves with Deepwood Scouts, Elspeth armies with magical missiles, Skaven missiles, and the list goes on. This limits their viability as a Doomstack or frontline unit. Their health pools are not enough to withstand magical damage. They either ignore physical attacks or die to magic. And Lamassu cannot hover over enemy ranged units and not die, while Fireborn slowly move across the battlefield. Bringing them against a Rite of Primeval Glory army is one thing. Facing a Tzeentch army, that's a completely different story. But let's forget all that, and you still want to make Fireborn viable long term. So you heavily invest armaments in Hellforge upgrades and provide them with all good stuff. Unbreakable, barrier, perfect figure, missile resistance. But here's the problem. That's a huge investment of armaments at turn 40, when you need K'daai Fireborn to carry. The cost is too high, and to make Fireborn even semi-viable, you need multiple Hellforge upgrades. And for a full army, that's a lot of armaments. Too much actually, for a tier 3 unit that should dominate early and mid game. Unbreakable is a must, barrier is recommended, perfect vigor is needed, and missile resistance is also required. and getting all 5 buffs is not even an option until late game tech. While you're investing in Fireborn upgrades, you're delaying better late game units that don't need the same attention or resources. Even if you manage to maximize their stats, the efficiency is lower than units that scale naturally, like bull centers or guns. In short, it's a lot of work for a unit that is still limited by speed and vulnerable to magic. But what do you actually get in the end? In case you manage to upgrade them fully, you will have success in mid-game, but then the late-game armies start coming for you. And those are full of tough large units and heroes. Can K'daai Fireborn deal with them too? Fireborn hit extremely hard, but they have no anti-large bonus. And when fighting dragons or abominations in melee, anti-large is your best tool. The best endgame armies usually have no problems dealing with such units quickly. Fireborn, however, once more need a strong setup, and setups can fail. Under perfect conditions, spamming several spells to increase fire damage, they can take down large targets, but again, it takes time. They do insane damage to infantry, but they do not kill large targets fast. This again limits their effectiveness as a doomstack. And one last thing. Let's say you want to use Fireborn in a balanced army rather than a doomstack. Then you face even more problems. On paper they are good flankers, and that can be viable, but then you come across same problems many balanced armies do. What do you drop from your army to fit them in? Artillery? Or maybe guns? They are your main damage dealers. Frontline infantry? Well, unlike shorter dwarves, K'daai are large units and they block the line of sight of your guns. In combination with Fireglaves they would be fine, but Fireglaves cannot shoot through Fireborn. And what about the red line buffs? If you buff Fireborn, you're not buffing artillery, guns or infantry. You could with a level 40 plus lord, but that's very late in the campaign. They are not only imperfect as a doomstack, but also problematic in supporting roles. To sum it up, K'daai Fireborn can be a strong doomstack under perfect conditions, and only against some enemies. Anything that kills your Lamassu or heroes, or uses ranged magical damage will be a problem. Think of Valkia, fast units or strong spellcasters. They lack speed, require multiple nuances and support, are vulnerable to magical ranged attacks, and need heavy Hellforge upgrades. And there's always this problem. Why recruit Fireborn when Bull Centaurs exist? They come online at the same time, but Centaurs remain effective for the entire campaign. Fireborn, by contrast, quickly fall behind. If you want to see what Bull Centaurs can do, check my video on the army that should not exist. And in the next video, I'll show you the strongest army you can build almost for free.